Hi, I'm Paul LeBlanc. I'm president of Southern New Hampshire University. When you think about the higher education system that most of the world uses today, it was developed for an industrial age economy. So standardization, the idea that you would come in at age 17, everyone sort of came out of high school into college and you went off into your career, often with the same employer for the rest of your working life. That doesn't describe anyone's reality today. So now we have students who are coming in at age 17, 27, 37, 47. And in the old days, we used to think about, well, it was a degree. It was an associate's, a bachelor's, or a master's, and maybe if you were going to be an academic, a PhD. Today, we think more in terms of what do you need at this point in your life, in this point of your career, and it isn't necessarily a degree. It may be, I need 2 days of education, just in time, I have a new job, I need to be better at X. We have to think about building a higher education system for this much more fluid economy in which we live, where work is changing all the time. Even if you don't change your job will change out from under you, so you're constantly relearning. When we think about the transformation of institutions, of course, context matters. What you have is a kind of crisis of funding and a crisis of business models. Crisis breeds change. I think you will see more quickly now all sorts of new models, and new delivery models, more affordable models, because we have to come up with something. We also know that industry is demanding something different from us. They don't trust a college degree as a signal of capacity in the way they once did. 30 years ago, if you had a college degree, an employer assumed that you could speak well, write well, had quantitative skills, could do the work. Today, they're not so sure. There's sort of an infamous survey that was done in the United States in which 94% or thereabouts of provosts said that their graduates were ready for work on day one, but only 8% of employers agreed with them. When we think about the challenges of getting our offerings aligned with the future of work, that really is not any single entity's responsibility. It needs to be a conversation. It needs to be a tighter conversation between industry and academia. And that's not a conversation that's been easy in the past. So there are long-standing complaints, right? The employer says, universities just don't get it. They're not giving me the graduates I need. And universities are saying, employers are just not very clear. And they just want somebody who's ready for a job tomorrow. That's not our job. So this is the hot topic area, and I think as we move towards competencies and skills, it's giving us a lingua franca, a common language. It's been a goal for many people, sort of a dream, that we would get to a place where we could create personalized learning pathways. So every student who comes into higher education would have a highly personalized learning pathway. There's an analog, I think, in higher education today. And I think we'll struggle to get to personalized education, but I think we're moving towards precision education. So I know that an 18-year-old needs a certain kind of educational support system and experience that's very different than a 40-year-old who is, working full-time, has a couple of kids, and now is trying to finish that degree that they never completed before. That 17-year-old, they want an education and they want a good job, but they also want this coming-of-age experience that going to university is all about. That 35-year-old, they've had all the coming-of-age they can handle. They're grown up. They know what they're about. And think about it, in almost every other aspect of our life today, we are used to customization. So I think this next generation of learners, these are digital natives. They have never known life without their devices. They will expect to learn differently. We did this really interesting set of interviews with Generation Z students who we work with, and they had this common theme. I love learning. I hate school. And school looks boring in contrast or in comparison to the way they engage the world. What is the most dramatic learning moments in most undergraduates' lives? They almost never have to do with the classroom. It's when I went to study abroad and I had no idea the world was like this, opened my eyes to a new world. I just want to travel all the time now. That's powerful learning. All of it's experiential, none of it's in the classroom. For a large number of younger students, so traditional age students, campuses will still be important because they have two jobs they want done. They want an education that creates an opportunity for a good career and good work, but they also want this coming of age experience. And those are better done when you have a campus. But I think the idea of going to campus all day, week after week, I think that gets much more fluid, and that we will think of campuses as a place, as almost sort of a home base. Now for older learners and for adult learners, we already know that campuses don't work. If I'm 35 years old, I got a full-time job and 2 kids, it means I'm racing from work, then I rush into class, I'm in there for a couple hours, and maybe if when I get home my kids are still awake, but there's a good chance they're in bed and I've missed them for that evening. With online learning, which we're getting really good at, I go home, I have dinner with my family, I help my kids with their homework, I put the dishes away, I tuck them into bed. Now at 9 p.m. I make a cup of tea, and then I log in, and then from 9 to midnight, I'm a student. Which one do you think works better? It's a no-brainer. Campuses don't work. So I would say that applied learning is critical and core to the future of learning, because the future of learning, in my view, is really about the ability to demonstrate what you can do with what you know. And as soon as you ask that question, you're talking about performance. And the best way to judge performance is to ask people to do things. I think in much of the world today, we are facing a crisis of inequity, but it happens in the context of globalization, the impacts of technology, and a sense that there will be winners and losers. And if we leave people behind, we create enormous social unrest, fear, and anger. I can put it in more positive terms as well, which is that there's enormous talent in all of our population. Poor kids are not dumber than smart kids. What they've had typically is a less good education. And what we can't do is squander the talent. The problems we face are too profound, whether it's climate change, our new economic models, our understanding the impact of technology. All of these things are hard. We can't leave the smart kids behind. So it's incumbent on us, for the good of our societies, but also to take advantage of every smart problem solver that sits there at age 5 today in a poor neighborhood, in a poor school, to say, no, we can give you a path so you can be part of the solution.